Welcome back, everyone, to We Know Texas Vino, and boy, do I have a treat for you all. Now, before we jump into this week's amazing episode with Michael from Adega Vino, I want to share with you all some up-and-coming events. October the 12th from 4 to 8 p.m. is the Valley View Wine Walk. We were there last year for the first time, and man, we just had a blast. You need to come out to support the local wineries and the shops. Then in November the 2nd, from noon to 6 p.m. is the Drink North Texas Wine Festival in Coppell, Texas. This was so much fun. You don't want to miss this, and come support all the local wineries and the shops as well. Now, a new event that is happening this year is the Gainesville Wine and Country Festival. This will be located in historic downtown Gainesville. There's going to be 15 North Texas wineries with live music from Luke Combs Tribute Band. This event starts November the 23rd from noon to 7:30 p.m. We Know Texas Vino will be giving away tickets to these events as time gets closer. So watch our Facebook page and listen to the podcast because you do not want to miss this. Now enjoy this week's episode. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. This is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
Salute.
Welcome all you Texas wine lovers. This is your host, Will, at We Know Texas Vino, and we are coming to y'all from Parr Vineyards. We're talking to Rob and Dilek
Yes.
Parr. Thank y'all for having us on here.
Absolutely. Thank
You're
you
welcome.
for being here.
Now, what y'all didn't hear about all this is I sat here for like an hour having technical problems. I had no clue why that happened, but it happened because, this whole week we've been here doing episodes. So, but they were both really kind and allowed me to sit right here and troubleshoot, and I think we finally got it working now. Y'all think so?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Let's do this.
Oh, mercy. So real quick before we get started, we're going to talk about our social media. So y'all can find us on Facebook at We Know Texas Vino. You can also find us on our website at weknowtexasvino.wine or .com. And then, of course, if you look for us on any kind of podcasting platform, give us a 5-star rating. Give us some feedback. We love knowing what wineries you want us to visit, what kind of education you want to hear about, or just want to tell us how great we're doing. So, again, give us a 5-star rating. So, you're listening to We Know Texas Vino. We're episode 75. Y'all know y'all are like the what do they call it? Every 25 you have a foundational episode. Well, y'all are my foundational episode.
Woo-hoo.
Y'all are at 75. So, we are at a beautiful place called Parr Vineyards. And these two couple, this couple here is an amazing people already. And we just got to sit and chat with them and get to know more about them. And that's what we will do for y'all today. So, first off, everybody has a journey in life. They have great perspective on what they want to do and what they're doing at the current moment, and they decide they want to do something else. When was that moment in life that y'all did that?
When he showed up and he said, guess what? I just purchased 80 acres in Mason County. And I said, why? He said, because we're going to have a vineyard.
And he's just sitting over there and he's like, yep, I did that. So, well, before we really get deep into that, because y'all's got a really great story, y'all both in the military, correct?
No, not I.
Not,
I was with him, yes.
Oh, you was with him, okay.
all those years.
And you were in the Air Force, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And how many years did you do in the Air Force?
32.
32 years. Well, first off, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
So you got in the state. You were in. Where did you station in Europe for most of the time?
A lot of different places.
Well, so where was you stationed at? Where you found your love for wine at?
We were stationed in England at that time. That was after I'd done my tour in Vietnam. We were posted to England, and in England, the fighter squadrons over there travel all over Europe, and so we became acquainted, and she got to travel some too. I was gone 211 days a year to different places throughout Europe, and we both learned to enjoy good wine, good food, and the camaraderie that went with it, and the lifestyle that went with it.
And I know that, Europe, obviously has the rich wine history because that's where wine was actually, I wouldn't say invented, but invented, And so, yeah, you got to experience some really great cultures there. So what brought you back into the States, though? Retirement?
No.
It was time to go home, okay?
So are y'all from Mason?
No. I'm from Robstown, Texas, and she's from...
I grew up in Mathis, Texas.
Okay, so not too far from each other.
Right.
Yeah, okay, cool. So when you came back to the States, you know, why wine? I mean, what was that trigger?
Okay, this was a long time after we came back from the States.
Okay.
I still had a lot of my military career, went on for many, many, many years after I came back to the States. But at some point there, I had time, and we were very, very frustrated over all these years with not being able to get consistently good wine. And we tried, believe me. So I had time. I started making wine with kits, and that was terrible. Never drank a single bottle that I could drink. And then one day we came to Mason County to visit with someone that offered some grapes, and that didn't happen, but I bought a farm. Yeah, I bought a farm.
So, okay, so I love that story, what you said on there. You went to buy grapes, and they denied you grapes. I mean, I read the article but you know, talking with you, you know, during this whole other process, you know, it was your close friend, and there was a reason for it. I mean, which is fine, you know. But that's what triggered you to decide to do your own vineyard then.
Yes, and I had no intentions of it becoming what it became. Yeah.
I am going to interject something here. When he retired, he spent 6 years building an airplane.
Really?
And I was looking forward to traveling. We were going to go see all the friends we've made through the years all over the States. However, we took, I believe, 2 trips in it, which I loved the airplane. It was a beautiful airplane. However, he said to me, you know, when he says, we're going to have a vineyard, I said, what about the airplane traveling? He said, Dilek, it's a beautiful airplane, but it has no soul. I want to do something with my hands that allows me to leave some kind of beauty behind. And of course, I was angry. I was angry that he wanted to buy a vineyard, and we were going to spend our lives working really hard. And so he knew which button to push when he said, you know, I want to leave a legacy behind that has a lasting beauty and it has soul. So basically, that's what it was. So I jumped on the train, and here we are.
Well, and you know, it sounds like that was one train that you really enjoyed doing then.
Yes. At the time, I wasn't so sure.
There were repercussions.
I bet there's been several days where she'd tell you that, yeah, I wish I had that plane back, huh? So, just side topic there. What kind of plane did you build?
It was a experimental airplane. It was called an RV-6, and it was all aluminum, and it was very, very powerful, very efficient airplane. And it was very much like a fighter, flew exactly like a fighter, but it had no purpose other than flying around and enjoying flying. And I had other things to do at that point.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, and you took flights with him all the time in it?
Well, I mean, no, I only flew in it twice with him, and that was it. Our time with the airplane has been very limited.
Well, once we got the farm, I didn't mind hard work. I knew that was what it was all about. I had no idea how completely owning a grape vineyard just absolutely nailed your feet to the ground. You had no time to go anywhere to do anything. Except in those days we could take a vacation at the end of the year, but that's before we were making wine, though.
Right. So you decided to get into growing grapes. So what kind of varietals did you choose to start with first?
Well, having been stationed often in Spain, we chose varietals that were Spanish in most cases, not specifically Italian because of the difference in the climates. But Spain was very close, and I spent a lot of time in Spain, got to enjoy their particular wines there. And it was the typical thing that we should have been doing because it was appropriate to our climate here. It was Tempranillo, Touriga Nacional, Movedra were the two primaries.
Interesting. Now, I will say this, I'm still very young in my wine drinking career right now. And since we've been down here, I've heard 3 different varietals. Touriga Nacional was one of them, which I've now got 2 different bottles from 2 different winemakers, and I plan on getting a 3rd one today from y'all. And then I've got, we heard Fiano, and then there was one more that I can't remember. So there was 3 different ones I've heard since I've been down here. And it's interesting coming from like North Texas, and you hear certain varietals up there, and then coming down into the hill country, I hear a whole different set of varietals down here. So it's amazing what's being grown in different parts of Texas. And it's really interesting that you, in fact, actually, I was reading that you were one of the first people in Texas growing the Touriga. Is that correct?
Very early there, the Buists were growing Touriga also, but they didn't stay there. Anyway, we selected that for good reason. Now, most people coming to Texas, the first thing to do is plant Cabernet Sauvignon and a white wine from France, and that's not us. Right. I mean, we can grow those grapes, but Napa grows them really, really well.
Oh yeah.
So why compete with them?
Right. Exactly. Let's be on our own.
Yeah.
We're
When
Texas.
we can grow Tempranillo better than Napa, we can grow Movedra better than Napa, and I'm not being boisterous about it, but that's just the fact.
No, be boisterous.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
100%.
Okay.
I mean, we're
anyway,
Texas.
we were trying to be as practical as we could with that.
Right.
And that part of it worked out really well. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And it's always fascinating when I talk to winemakers and vineyard owners, how they say, okay, I want to do this, and they'll go out there and they'll set out to do it, and they'll figure everything out. Or in some cases, they'll just go and plant, and they'll figure it out as they go, which in most cases, that's where I'm hearing it first, and then you'll figure out how things going. So do you still have those same varietals growing right now?
Yeah. We did some things right, and the selection of the varietal was right. The selection of the layout of the vineyard and the engineering in that was all correct. But there were all kinds of other problems.
And it typically is when you first start doing something like that. So,
well, people send you plants that are diseased, okay, and that really upsets you.
Yeah, and especially some of those are communal diseases, and you just don't lose one or two. You use maybe sometimes a whole row or even a whole crop. So yeah, those are pretty bad stuff there. One of the things I saw is your quote on y'all's website. Y'all said you just don't want a good bottle of wine. You want you just want a good bottle of wine. Sorry, I misread that. Sorry. And I like your philosophy, just that small philosophy. We're not even going to the actual philosophy y'all have, but when we all make wine, that's what we want to do. We want to make a good bottle of wine, and then we share that with our friends and our families. And I've heard nothing but good stuff from y'all's wine. I mean, everybody talks about, hey, if you go down to Mason, you have to go to Parr Vineyards because they make some of the best wines in the area. And so I'm excited to sit here and talk to y'all about this because I want to know where y'all come from all this. So your website had a philosophy. What is y'all's philosophy?
Okay, let me cover the good bottle of wine.
Okay.
People say, how did you get from the Air Force into this business? And I said, I just wanted a good bottle of wine. Right. And that's the absolute truth, and it was very simple. Mm-hmm. I did not really intend to create what was created, but that was just a natural outcropping. When you start putting a water well together and a high fence and all these other things, it winds up being very costly. Right. And so you're no longer making a good bottle of wine for yourself. You've got to figure out some way to make some money off of what you're doing here. So we made wine. We made grapes to sell to other people for several years before we ever made commercial wines ourselves.
Okay. And so that's actually really even more interesting because you actually you started selling it before you actually made it. So what made you end up deciding to make wine then at that point?
Well, I just wanted this small little old vineyard out there that I could go make a few bottles of wine for ourselves. Okay, that's all I was wanting.
It wasn't a small vineyard. It was not a small vineyard.
It was an 80 acre.
Well, and no, it's not 80 acres. I mean, the land is.
The
But,
land is 80
yes,
acres.
Okay,
It's
we have 22 and a half acres in vines. But basically, a vineyard is incredibly costly, especially if you do get diseased vines, and then a few years later you have to, you end up pulling up thousands of them.
Right.
So, we're looking at, okay, how is this going to really financially be okay? Then we have to expand into making wine.
Right.
Basically, that was where it was.
Right. So when you were selling your grapes, who you're selling them to?
Well, the first customer was Paternalis, and one of the reasons, I mean, it was the first year we planted the grapes, and it was hard to do, but they all grew through that year, and we said, oh, this is easy. And then the next year, when bud break came around, 49% of them did not show up. They were dead.
Oh, wow.
They were dead from disease. They were dead from freezes, and they had grafted vines. And I won't go into all the detail there, but that was not a good way to do it.
Right.
But the thing that kept me in it was 3 years later when we had our first crop, it was sold, and they were selling wine made from that crop for $42 a bottle.
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay, this is going to be difficult, but we've got something here.
Right.
And yes, it was the quality of our fruit, and this was just due to where we were. We worked hard to get that, but anyway, the area naturally produced good grapes.
Right. One of the things I read about where you're located at, where your vineyard's at, excuse me, even though it's in Texas, but from what I read, where y'all located at, y'all get the cool nights for July and August, which is what those grapes need, that coolness. Was that a complete accident that you found that, or?
No, not really. I grew up where every once in a while, coming from flat South Texas, it was hot as everything, and going to the Texas Hill Country to one of the resorts up there, that as you drove through in the late afternoon in the deep spots in the highway, it was cool.
Right.
So, wow, okay, at night it gets cool. And so when I saw that particular piece of property and the way it was situated, I said, oh, this has cool nights, and it was a lot cooler than I thought. So yes, we have the highest diurnal change of anywhere around here, just because of the layout of our property.
Now, is there like a little river that runs through there that helps it make it that cool at night?
Well, there were eventually springs and little streams on both sides of our property, with a high spot in the middle, but those dips were cool. And they're very cool in the winter. In the spring, it was a problem because it froze the grapes if we weren't careful.
Right. And I ride motorcycles, and I know that sometimes during the cooler season, going through those dips, you be up 60 degrees, and all of a sudden you go in those little dips, and it's like 40, and you're like, oh, I wasn't ready for that one, So that's interesting that you found that. And are you the only people in the Mason area that has a vineyard that's like that? I'm
sure we're not the only ones. Yeah, in fact, I know we're not the only ones, but ours is predominantly that way to a significant extent.
Interesting. And for our listeners who don't understand why that's a significant, that allows the grapes to stress during the day and kind of calm down at night, which, it's a good thing. That gives them plumper, make them more rich in flavor.
Well, grapes stop making sugar at 95 degrees.
Right.
So easily on a summer afternoon, we hit 95 degrees to 100 degrees.
Right.
And then that night, we can get down into the low 70s and sometimes even into the high 60s. So harvest time, in the morning when we get up to go out and harvest at 6:30 in the morning, we've got 65 degree temperature out there, and it takes a long time for that to come up to be hot. By late afternoon, it might be 80 degrees or 90 degrees.
And how many people do you have harvest with y'all?
That's a whole nother story.
Well, I mean, I've done a couple of harvests, and it's brutal, especially when you start at 7 o'clock in the morning. Most places about 7 o'clock, it's already 80 degrees. But if y'all got a little valley that starts out at, the low 70s, to harvest, I mean, that's a great time to harvest and telling everybody to get it all done.
Yeah, we'll usually have a crew of a minimum of 6 people to sometimes 20 people, depending on what we're doing and who we're doing it for.
So, with that being said, about your the vineyard and stuff, explaining your philosophy. I read your philosophy on y'all's website, and I really really enjoy it. But for our listeners who may not see your website, tell us what your philosophy is.
On what of many subjects?
The grape growing and the land.
Well, for me, what I observed all these years, what's important is that every single vine is touched by hands that care. And he knows, my husband knows, every single vine and their character, how much they're going to produce or not, and what kind of care they need. So I think having a vineyard is almost like overseeing your own children and bringing them up.
Right.
And so knowing the soil, knowing the weather, knowing what kind of care they need at the appropriate times, and to be there hands-on constantly, it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. You cannot get somebody else to do that for you. And not only that, but we harvest in the cool of the day. Mm-hmm. And then our grapes are brought in. It's all hand harvested. He does not allow machinery between his rows. And then it's brought here within minutes of harvesting. And it goes into, our cooling room, and then it's crushed. And then it's fermented. Mm-hmm. Every step of the way, we are there. And so being able to see, but also, the reason we had on our website, and it was very important to me, to show his hands holding up the dirt, basically. That was very important. Mm-hmm. Where you start. And what
soil, dear soil.
Yes, the whole terroir. Where you start with the dirt in your hands and being able to put your hands in that dirt, mm-hmm. and then plant everything that you have chosen, and then nurture it through the good weather as well as the bad weather, mm-hmm. and being there, and nothing goes into our bins that has bird pecks on it or anything else. If it has that, it goes on the ground. Because one of the things that young lady that helps us with all of our media stuff, she was out there one day seeing that we were hand harvesting, and she said, "Dilek, that is brutal work. Why? Why not machine harvest?" And I said, "Have you ever seen machine harvesting?" And of course, we can't all do hand harvesting. Right. There are huge fields that has mm-hmm. to be pulled off the vine. And I said, every single vine, every single grape is cut by hands, and then you have 2 eyes looking at it. Mm-hmm. If there's anything wrong with anything, it goes on the ground, mm-hmm. not in the bin. And I believe that makes a difference.
And that right there. Right.
Yeah, everything she says is true, but the big problem was the 10 years it took to get there. Mm-hmm. There was so many things that need to be changed and fixed from the standard way of doing. Normally, in Texas, vines they have a rootstock, mm-hmm. and but it gets really cold, that vine freezes to the rootstock, you're done.
Right.
So we were the first to, not the first, there were others, but on the high plains, but we were probably almost the only ones to plant on own-rooted vines. And that's because we had a sandy soil, and the phylloxera louse would not bother us, so we could plant the vine from its original condition without a Frankenstein monster here.
Right.
And the other problem was that the nurseries, not intentionally, in California and Oregon, were sending rootstock out that was diseased, and they knew it was happening. But in Napa, it wasn't a problem because the situation is so benign compared to ours.
Right.
But with us, it was a serious problem. So we had to go to the Clean Vine Service up there and build. If I'm looking at the picture up there now, we built our own nursery out of absolutely clean stock from the Prosser, Washington Clean Vine Service. And so we've got the only nursery in Texas right now. We don't sell to any other. It's just our nursery.
Interesting.
So that took 10 years for us to get there, and then we had to replant all the stuff out in the vineyard that was grafted. So tremendous journey here. And then you've got the cold springs. Not the winter. Grapes don't mind cold winter, but they don't like a cold spring because we get bud break on the 15th of March, and it doesn't stop freezing until the 15th of April. So how do you get through that? Well, there are ways to do it by pruning around and fooling the grapes, but it really took wind machines to fix it.
And that's what I was going to ask you. Do y'all go out, because I know some vineyards will go out there, like, for example, Kiefer Saul this last year, that last freeze away he just had, they went out there and had rows and made fire on all the rows. And then RK is one that I work at on the weekends. He has a big fan that he turns on and circulate the air. And I know some places, like in California, they've got the money to do this. They purchase helicopter pilots and they ripped off the vineyards and stuff.
All of those things work, but the worldwide solution to that is generally the wind machine.
Yeah.
It takes warm air above and mixes it with cold air below, and it really does the job quickly.
Yeah, and you just need to keep it above, 32 degrees to keep it from freezing. So even 35 is perfect.
Yeah, we get it back to 35 and then it levels off.
That's not too bad. I like that. It's very fascinating, though, and that's, I guess I didn't see that about y'all creating a nursery, because I've looked at multiple articles about y'all, and that I've never read about you creating your own nursery, and that's something I've found also, that a lot of winemakers and vineyard owners, sometimes they'll get irritated at products they're getting, and they're not getting quality products, and they'll the heck with this, I'm going to do my own thing here, and I'm going to create good quality products for me and whoever else. And I really commend you on that, because, sometimes, in my personal belief, that sometimes California will send us stuff that they don't want us to succeed on purpose. I mean, if it's true or not, I don't know.
I don't think they're that smart.
No, I don't believe that was the case.
No. Yeah.
The manager of the Clean Vine Service in California, I had a conversation with her trying to buy some clean fruit directly from her, and she apologized profusely because she said, "I'm sorry, sir, we can't send you any because we don't have any clean vines.
Oh, wow.
They're all compromised, and we're pulling the whole thing up and starting all over. You need to call these people at Prosser, Washington, because they're way ahead of us on this, because it's always been cold up there." And so that's why this happened. But they were aware of it after they started shipping grapes, not just to Napa and Finger Lake in New York, but to Texas, Minnesota, Virginia, places like that didn't have perfect weather.
Interesting. And again, that's something, every time I do an episode here, I always learn something new. And that's something right there. I just learned something new. I didn't realize that I would think these vineyards that sells the vines would actually make sure that their stuff is clean and free of disease. I never thought that they wouldn't know that until they shipped out and it's too late.
Yeah.
And then, again, you creating your own little nursery, that's amazing that you've done that. How many people in the Texas wine industry have come to you for advice since you've done that?
Nobody.
Well, then we need to change that. Oh man, that is great. See, I love hearing stories about that. That is amazing. So, and again, I'm looking at y'all's philosophy here. I want to read exactly what it says on y'all's website, if you don't mind. Our philosophy is simple. The place matters, the unique terroir, and the idea of microclimate support a classic standard of viticulture and winemaking. Parr Vineyards is nestled in a hilly terrain with its own microclimate, experiencing warm days but cool nights even in July and August heat. these conditions allow for more balanced flavors and exceptional fruit that you can definitely taste. And that right there is, I love that. I love that philosophy, you know. And I think most, in fact, I won't say most, I say all winemakers in Texas all have that philosophy within their vineyard. They want to make sure that everything they put into it is the best. They don't want mediocre or subpar fruit that comes out, because they're got to make wine out of it, or they're going to sell it to another winemaker that they want the best of it. I know there's a lot of controversy about, you know, organic, you know, spraying or doing regenerative or, you know, stuff like that. So I commend y'all. Y'all do a great job out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. So with me just saying that regenerative, are y'all working on any kind of regenerative out there in y'all's vineyard also?
What do you mean regenerative?
Like, you know, using plants to help ward off of different bugs, or like Adega and Portree are actually using like praying mantises to ward off the glassy sharpshooter.
All right, you're talking about farming in a manner that doesn't destroy anything.
Correct.
All right, and of course, farming, if you're farming trying to use organic, you're going to destroy something.
Right.
Your vineyard.
Yep.
Okay, and there's reasons for that. The vinifera grape was evolved in Central Asia, where they don't have our pest.
Mm-hmm.
If you bring them over here, every pest in the world wants to eat our vinifera grapes because they're nice and sweet.
Right.
So you can't do that particular thing. But other things that you can do is you farm in a manner that you're not ever destroying anything. We spray pesticides, and we spray weed killer. But we're careful what we use and how we use it.
Okay.
And the pesticides we spray are rotated constantly every 14 days to a different one, so that we don't get the pest accustomed to it. And we do it in accordance with a label. And the labels are made today very carefully so that they do not leave residual in the ground or in the fruit or in the plant.
Interesting.
And then we don't take all the cuttings and drag them to the end of the row and burn them. We leave them right where they are and let them decompose there. And we leave the natural grasses there. We mow them. Grass burrs are terrible. But anyway, it's
That's a whole different topic.
yeah. It's a sustainable farming is what it's officially called. Yeah.
Interesting.
And basically what he does use is it does not harm the ladybugs or the praying mantis, you know, certain things that we want in the vineyard.
Right.
That's a very important point, because we didn't realize it at first, and we were using some pesticides that were killing the beneficials.
Right.
And then if you do that for a while, pretty soon you do have a big problem.
Yeah.
And so as soon as we learned about that, we switched over to the things that kill grasshoppers don't bother the ladybugs,
Right.
or the praying mantis. So that was some of the things we found out through experience as we went on.
You know, and you brought up something really interesting there, grasshoppers. Okay. First off, the only thing good for a grasshopper is catfish bait.
Yes.
So I remember, let's see, probably about 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, my dad lived out in Stephenville. And one year came the worst infestation of grasshoppers he's ever seen, to the point that his house was gray, but the grasshoppers were on it so much that it turned yellow. Ate every vegetation that he had except for the grass, which he was upset because he still had to mow that. How does the grasshopper actually affect the vineyard, especially when you get in that infectious infestation? Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. Infestation, where there's so many of them that it's hard to not walk outside and get slapped with one.
Well, we've seen that, but in the vineyard, the Lepidoptera pesticide, and there's several of them that only kill Lepidoptera, which is grasshopper, and other things, Lepidoptera. And what it does is it kills them. If they bite, then they die. And so you will see 6 feet out, literally 6 feet outside the vineyard, there's grasshoppers everywhere you go in the vineyard. None.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know sometimes those grasshoppers are so bad, and I can remember hearing my dad just sit there and cussing at them because his garden is gone.
Yeah.
You know?
But that's very expensive pesticide that was specifically formulated for that.
Interesting.
The grasshopper has to bite. Once it bites one bite, that no more grasshopper.
I'll have to let him know that.
Yeah.
So here's one. I'm going to ask a really good question here. So how does it feel knowing you're 100% estate?
It doesn't feel, well, what other way is there? Well, obviously there are many other ways.
Right.
And yeah, we feel good about that, okay? And to me, that was the absolute correct and only way to do it. But this is Texas, and we like to do things backwards. We like to have a tasting room first and then figure out where we're going to get grapes.
No, we did not do that.
I agree with you. There's a lot of wineries that say tasting room first, vineyard second.
They're thinking about money first,
Yes.
work second.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. I know there's a lot of wineries out there that are proud to be 100% estate. Because that just goes to show the hard work that you put into everything you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that purchasing grapes from another vineyard is not hard work and so forth like that, but it's just knowing that you can come in here and you can open a bottle of wine and say, you know what, this came off of my hands, not anybody else's hands. And again, I'm not taking away from any other vineyards. It just feels that great. I know when I have a garden, I mean, I'm not comparing a garden to a vineyard, it's two totally different ballparks, but still going out there and pull a tomato off the plant or a cucumber and you eat that, you know that came off from your hands and your sweat.
And nothing's better.
Yeah, nothing's better. Yeah, nothing's better.
Yeah.
Well, that is good, but it's actually just common sense. If you grow your own grapes, you have control, absolute control. And if it doesn't work out, it's your fault, okay, not somebody else's.
Right.
But we do have very good friends that make real good wine using our grapes, and that's because our grapes are available to them. And in fact, they show us the way sometime how to make better wine. Yeah.
And that's great. You're always learning. You never stop learning. It's awesome. So I got to look at y'all's website. Y'all have a lot of great people that is behind the scenes. So you got y'all who are on the front of the scenes, and then you got your people that are behind the scenes, and then you got the people that's behind the scenes. Like, for example, Fritz Westover. I mean, I know a lot of people who have used him for their vineyards and stuff. So I know that's one of the gentlemen that I want to get on the show, and I know that his time is like very valuable. And I'm going to have to schedule out something like 10 years in advance to get him.
You're going to have to pay his price, okay? Fritz is a very good friend of ours. We don't use him anymore, but that's because he taught us everything. I mean, we really learned a lot from him, and then we got to the point where we knew how to do that on our own. But Fritz has helped a great many people, but there were a lot of other people that helped us along the way, and some by criticizing us when we needed to be criticized. Yeah,
and I think the only way in this industry, if you don't have people who are honest with you and criticize you, and you just grin and bear it and listen and then correct it, you won't be successful, because all you're going to do is you're just going to do, I hate to say it, half-assed stuff, and if you do it half-assed, then you don't get a good product out of it. So I commend Fritz for what he's doing, and then I commend y'all for even listening to him, even it has to be the tough.
No, it was years that he was. It was years that he was working with us. Yeah,
that's awesome. And so I was also looking on here. Your winemaker. So Robert, is it Nada?
Oh yeah. Now. You shut me off with Chris there, but we've got other people. Rob Nida assists us. He is what you could call our real winemaker. It is mostly technical support. He doesn't. Sometimes he does come out there and do some of the work, but mostly it's the technical support.
Actually, he was here just this Tuesday.
And then when she gets ready to do a blend, Rob is an integral part of that blending process. And then we have other people also that come that are educated. Taylor comes and works with us, and he helps me do the heavy work in the winery, and he has an enology degree. So we've got other people, and then we've got the people that help her put together the the
The blends?
no, not the blends. No, the technical writing that
Oh.
keeps people informed about what we're doing.
Oh.
The social media.
The social
Yes.
media is important.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is another social media stuff here, because I love talking to people and I want to make sure y'all's word gets out to everybody else. Now, as of this week, I've actually found out that this podcast is listening to 35 different countries.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I love knowing that. I love hearing that, seeing other countries that are listening to a podcast about Texas wines. Now, what I'm curious about, and I have no way of measuring this, is how many of those are actually coming to y'all's website and actually looking and probably not buying wine, because I don't know how that's going to work going overseas for one bottle, but at least coming and checking y'all out and setting up some sort of visit with y'all. I don't have no way of measuring that, so I can't tell you. So, well, I love y'all's story. Y'all have actually got a very beautiful story. And I should have actually said at the very, very, very beginning, and I forgot to do that. How did y'all two meet? I'm sorry.
Chocolate cake.
Okay, podcast is over. I know how to take care of this. He's pointing at you now.
I knew his cousin,
Mm-hmm.
and one day she called me up, and she said, "Dilek, you've got to come out here. I have a friend here you need to meet." And they were out at the lake house, and I was in town in Mathis. I just finished cheerleading practice, and I said, "Hey, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I need a shower." She says, no, you got to come out, you can shower here. Throw some clothes in a bag. So I'm in high school, and so I go out there, and as soon as I get out there, I meet this other young woman, beautiful young lady. That was her cousin. And then, oh no, we've got to go to Robstown. I've never been to Robstown. Robstown was only like 30 miles from Mathis, Texas. We've got to take the maid back. Okay, we get in the car. They drive me all over the place. And we keep seeing him drive by in his white convertible. And then they go, "Oh, there's Robert, there's Robert, there's Robert." But nobody tells me Robert is my brother or Robert is my cousin, which these two young ladies were. I thought, well, gee, he must be some hotshot if they get so giddy about every time they see him. We end up at his house to pick up some things for his sister. And I'm standing there. I'm starving. There's a big piece of chocolate cake on the counter. And she says to me, "Get yourself a piece." So I cut a piece. I'm leaning over the sink. I'm eating this chocolate cake, and he drives up in the driveway. I'm looking at the driveway. And I think, oh, he lives here. So we walk out because we were in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
I think I had chocolate cake all over my face. I'm not sure. And they introduce us, and I said goodbye. That was it. He called me up for a date that night.
Nice.
But the chocolate cake was made by his girlfriend.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, that's how we met.
Wow.
Many years ago.
Anyway, it worked.
Hey, you know what? That's not a bad idea. So I got to ask, what kind of white convertible was it?
It was a Chevrolet.
Chevelle?
No.
Oh, okay. We're just going to leave it at Chevrolet and that's it? Okay. Well, I really enjoyed conversation with y'all. I mean, I love learning about y'all. And again, I should have asked that question at the very beginning, but I got sidetracked. I got excited and stuff.
Do you have time for us to get back to the wines for a minute?
Yeah, we always have time.
Good. Because we have, when people come in here and they ask for a Merlot or a Cab, we don't have any of those. What we have here is what we are growing. And the varietals that we make blends with as well. And of course, we have exceptional fruit. We make very good wines. But also, from time to time, we have to decide what do we blend, which one we're going to blend, what are we going to come up with. And Bob Nida is very instrumental in helping me with this, because one of the decisions that we make is that he does out there. Robert does his work out in the vineyard, and I do the work deciding which wines we're going to have, because I am blessed with a little better palate than he does, and he does leave it up to me to make those decisions. So, we try to come up with different blends with the varietals that we are growing to be able to serve that can only be found here. And so far, I think we've been quite successful.
That's awesome.
Yes.
You were going to get into the wine processing, were you not?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, it's always interesting to find out how y'all decide on how you process your wine, figure out how you want to do your blends and stuff. Because I mean, you're going to have a unique taste from out here than anywhere else. I know, being a young winemaker myself, I still have a lot to learn. And I'm the type of guy that, it's both feet in, not 1 foot out and 1 foot in, And in this wine industry, you have to do that. And so I love what both of y'all have, because you work out in the vineyard and you work in the production room and you make sure everything works all copacetic together. And y'all worked as a team and not as an individual. I really do like that.
Well, first you have to have a philosophy of what kind of wine you're trying to make. Now, let's talk about the reds. I mean, the whites are kind of boilerplate. The whites all go into stainless steel, and they're sterile filtered. They get a typical white wine regimen. We don't do anything fancy with them. The reds, on the other hand, there's a lot of different decisions you can make. Are you going to make fruit-forward wine, or are you going to make bold wine that has good body? Full-bodied wine, and we chose the full-bodied wine, which is kind of the way they did it in Europe for 500 years before they started doing it over here. And that's a process, and that process means that it has to be aged in some kind of vessel that allows micro-oxygenation, because the micro-oxygenation has to get in there, and it has to allow the microbes that are in that wine. Nobody can plate them, but we know they're there from what they do. They smooth the wine out. They allow the tannins to soften, and it takes about 3 years for that to happen. Now, we didn't know that until we got in this business, and so we'd go down into the barrel room, and we'd taste wines, and she'd shake her head, and we'd come back another day and we'd taste wine again, and pretty soon we realized that she was getting real happy when it was at about 3 years plus.
Okay.
And then somewhere there she said yes. And it would be when we'd taste the wine, the tannins had softened. Most of them had fallen to the bottom of the barrel, and the microbes had done their thing, and we had this beautiful flavor.
Right.
And that's when we bottled it or we blended it with something else. But that 3 years in each case will produce a full-bodied, smooth wine. Now, the fruit-forward wine is produced with less time in the barrel, and it can produce some wonderful flavors, but it doesn't have longevity.
Right.
But anyway, our choice was the full-bodied wine, and ours lasts. We've never had. We don't have wines that go bad in the bottle. And the other thing, in other words, we don't have wines that get brown around the edges after so many years in the bottle. And in addition, if you take one of our bottles and open it and drink a couple of glasses out of it and put the cap back on, 3 or 4 days later or a week later, it still tastes good. And you can't do that to a mass-produced wine.
And that is 100% true on that one. And in fact, actually, I know there's been a couple of times where I've drank, wines from the grocery store, red wines, big bold reds from the grocery store, and put the cork in it, because I don't drink a whole bottle by myself at night, and come back a couple of days later, and it's just like, it's the best way to say it is like it's gone flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And something I've noticed in Texas wines is that a lot of times they don't go flat after 3 or 4 days. Now, 10 days after being open, we're kind of questionable then at that point right there, and mix it with some other stuff, and you got a little Slurpee or something out of it. Yeah. I really love what y'all have got going on here. Now, out of curiosity, I actually just had a thought in my head and it just went away. Ooh. Oh man, what was I going to say?
Hey, it's okay. We all have senior moments, but basically, at this point, this has been at our age. Quite often people ask, how did you do this? And of course, when he first, told me about what we were going to be doing, I was taken aback because I wanted to be retired like everybody else. However, this has been very good for us because we work together.
Mm-hmm.
We have our own sectors, and we are learning. We are engaged, and we feel like we have something really exciting to get up for every morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of our contemporaries we've known that have passed away on the greens on a golf course, or she's doing the luncheons and he's playing golf, and they never speak to each other hardly.
Mm-hmm.
So we speak a lot.
Wow.
We get to share a lot. We don't always agree on everything.
Right.
But we're very excited to be doing what we're doing. And because this will be the last hurrah as far as what we're going to be doing.
Oh, gee.
Oh, man.
You remind me.
Every bottle has our name on it. We want it to be, the best that we can possibly make.
And I love that philosophy. I love that thought process because, in my opinion, and from what I've seen from my grandparents, so my grandfather on my mom's side was very active. He worked 2 jobs, laying carpet and then working for the city. And then when he retired, he stopped working for the city and just laid carpet. And it kept him young.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
I think he was like 70 years old, still laying carpet by himself. And he was only about that big around, about this big as my pinky. And he had a heart attack, his 3rd heart attack. Let me make sure to say that. And it finally it caught up with him. And when he remarried after my grandmother passed away, the lady that he married, she made him stop moving around, stop doing things. And it aged him really, really fast. Mm. And I love that y'all are continuously always staying busy, because being busy and not just sitting around and just doing nothing at all, you're keeping yourself young, you're keeping yourself active. And I really commend y'all for that, because that's life. Life is not about sitting around and just watching it pass you by. Let's do something. Let's see the people that come in and let's smile at them and make some new friends coming in and out.
Absolutely.
I really do commend what y'all are doing. So,
thank you.
Yeah. What is the future for Parr Vineyards? I mean, what do y'all have coming up that y'all are really excited about? Any new plantings of vines coming in anytime soon? I like that. He just kind of smiles and he looks away.
Well, basically, we survived this year without any hail, which is yes. We're just going to continue to do what we are doing.
Mm-hmm.
And
hey, this is Jeff Cole from
hopefully
TexasWineLife.com.
continuing to
We're here with Will, Michael,
up our
and Jen
game
from
as
We Know
far as
Texas
the-
We Know.
And this is Amy
The,
Nemec with the
winery
Texas Wine Lover
goes.
mobile app.
And,
We're wrapping up
I
the
think
interview
that
and
every
moving
year
into
we
the
have
wine education
learned
portion of the
quite a bit,
episode, so stick
and
with
we
it.
continue to learn, and we are making better productions, basically. But, we entered the San Francisco Chronicles contest. We sent off 3 wines, and 2 of them came back with gold. One with double
Awesome.
gold, one with a gold. So that was pretty good.
Congratulations.
Just sending only 3 varietals, and that's what happened. So hopefully, we'll keep staying on the same track.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2 things. One is, I hear a humming now.
Yeah, there's a little small hum going on.
Okay. 2 things. One is, having made the double gold, we're saying, okay, what happened there? Well, we're not really sure.
Yes, we are. I am.
But anyway,
Well, no, I can tell you exactly what happened. You grew some great grapes. She made some great wine, and that's what happened.
yeah, that's right. But we want to figure out how to make better wines, and our wines are getting better. And we're paying more attention to certain things. About the larger cask are helpful, very helpful, because it's a long, slow process of the micro oxygenation. We have most of our wines are made in either 2,000 liter cask or 1,000 liter cask, and there's still a bunch that are in 60-gallon barrels. Okay, and they all proceed at different speeds, but we're learning a little bit about how to do that and how to better control that. But also we're working with other varietals. We have small quantities of Barbera planted. We've got Graciano now that's out there that really just a little bit of that.
And Malbec.
And Malbec. And she doesn't like to talk about growing more grapes, but we might grow some more grapes here. We don't know that yet. Yeah.
No, we have another, is it 20 acres, I believe, that is already been,
surveyed and platted.
And ready to go.
Yeah.
But I stopped him from planting anymore about 3 years ago when he said, I'm going to plant when I plant the next block. And I said, no, you're not. This is more than we can handle right now. And
she's right.
And so we don't know. We have the space. We have one daughter that's involved in the business with us. We don't plan our children's lives for them by what we are doing. Family businesses don't always work out. And we want them to be able to pursue what they want in life. In fact, they're being paid much more from other entities than what we might be able to do.
Right.
So anyway, future has a way of unfolding itself sometime.
Most definitely. Well, I really appreciate what y'all are doing here. I love y'all's story. Got sidetracked. As we're coming to the end of our first part here, before we get ready to take a small break, where can people find you online, and actually, where's your actual tasting room at?
You're 106. What? I was going to say you're in it, but you're at 106 Live Oak, right across from the courthouse on the square in Mason, Texas.
And aren't y'all like on a corner spot also?
Yes, almost at the corner, right before you get to the stop sign.
Awesome. And then where can they find you online?
We have our web, which is parrvineyards.com.
Awesome. Well, Rob and Dilek.
Yes.
I'll get this right one day, okay?
It's okay.
Delectable.
I know you said that, but, I've got this part-timer's disease and sometimers disease that kicks in sometimes. We're going to take a little small break, and then we're going to come back and the little topics that we got for education here. And again, this is going to be like a 10 or 15. You don't have to go on a full-on, hey, this is what you have to do. But what kind of advice would you give a new Texan who wants to start a winery here that's not from California?
Study the soil. Yeah, it's location. Make sure you have water. And make sure you pick the right and the correct varietals for that site.
Yes. Yeah. So,
but first, make sure you've really got a plan. What is it you're trying to do? Right. Are you just trying to get in the wine business? Mm-hmm. Or do you want to go the other route to a vineyard and then a winery and then a tasting room? Mm-hmm. You need to figure that out before you get started.
Right. Most definitely. Yeah. I mean, it's not something you just pick up and do. You got to do soil samples. You got to check your waters. You got to make sure you got make sure you get the right varietal for your soil that you've got. I mean, there's a lot. I know that I'm actually working on that with my parents right now. They've got 5 acres from doing nothing over in East Texas, and that's what we're working on right now is doing the soil samples. We got water information, so they have 3 water tables sitting right there, so we got water. So now we just got to figure out the soil and then do the grueling part is clearing the land. Yeah, that's not the fun part.
No.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest mistake most of them make, and we see a lot of it because we get to talk to a lot of people that are trying to do this. The biggest mistake is not having adequate water.
Yes.
Okay, you can't replace that because Texas, it doesn't rain when you want it to.
Exactly.
And the soil is also a problem, but it's a lesser problem. There's all kinds of different soils that will grow grapes, some much better than others.
Right.
And then after that is, do I really want to do all this work?
Well, I appreciate y'all's time for allowing me to come in here. And again, thank you, and sorry for the technical issues we had at the very beginning here. But we're going to go ahead and start wrapping up our show today. Okay? So real quick, I want to hit my sponsors. So obviously y'all know about Texas Wine Lover app, I know y'all are on there, so that's the great app. People need to use that app to come out here to Mason, and you can schedule a whole day just here in Mason to drink wine.
Absolutely. We have quite a few very nice establishments here, and we're proud to be here.
Yeah.
We're very happy that everybody else is here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I have another sponsor. I don't know if you're familiar with these guys, is Fly with Wine. Yeah. So this right here is they make a specifically made suitcase that you can put wine in to travel with.
Awesome.
So let's say we go to Europe. We decide to go drink some wine and you want to bring some back, but you're going to have to ship it through UPS or FedEx or DHL. Well, that's going to be an arm and a leg to ship it like that, and it's going to be at least a month before you see it. Well, with Fly with Wine, you could take that case of wine, put it in the suitcase, check it in at the airport, which will cost probably half as much as you would shipping it. And when you land at the airport back at home, guess what you already have in your hand? You have your wine.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty good little service they've got. So, well, every episode we do, we always end it with a quote. And usually it's one quote or two quotes. Usually they're funny. Usually they're thought-provocative. Sometimes they're just like, okay, I have to really think about this one later. So here's what I got today for us, okay? So the first quote I got, it says, "My doctor told me to watch my drinking. Now I'll stand in front of the mirror and drink my wine."
Very good. Very good.
And then the other one is, this was going to be funny, okay? So hopefully everybody will listen. "My dating profile states, must enjoy long romantic walks down the wine aisle." This is Will with We Know Texas Vino. Cheers.